Welcome to Let's Talk About Conflict with your host, Lynne Nash.
Hi there, it's Lynne Nash. Welcome back to Let's Talk About Conflict, a podcast about conflict skills, hopefully not creating conflict in your life, but helping you think about the ways you want to manage yourself when you are in a conflict situation. So I've got one for you today. I want you to really think about this. I, as a person who works in the conflict world, as a full-time mediator, am an attorney mediator in Texas. I'm not your attorney, just so we're all clear. No legal advice given. But in the role I have, I'm asked constantly by either students, because I teach negotiation, or by individuals who participate in my mediations, what do I think is the most important negotiation skill set? What do I think a really great negotiator ought to have in their toolkit? And for me, it's always the same. I always quickly say cultural competency. To be a really good negotiator on a whole different level, you really need to understand cultural competency. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, Lynne, you say it's important, but what does it mean? Got to give you a definition from somebody that at least I think gives us somewhere to start. The American Psychological Association, the APA, defines cultural competency as 1, possession of the skills and knowledge that are appropriate for and specific to a given culture. And 2, the ability to collaborate effectively with individuals from different cultures in personal and professional settings. This usually involves a recognition of the diversity between both between and within cultures, and capacity for cultural self-assessment, and a willingness to adapt personal behaviors and practices. Cultural competence, also known as intercultural competence, has become a central concept in business, education, healthcare, government, and many other areas. Okay, thank you, APA. Not a definition from Lynne, because I don't think I could have been quite so articulate about it. But what is it? What does all of that mean? The APA is saying, hey, you possess skills and knowledge appropriate for a specific culture. Okay, I am from Texas. I understand Texas culture, but this is a big place. So you have to be willing that you may not have all the rules down for cultural competency. If I live in the northern end of Texas, in DFW, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if I go all the way south to the border of Texas, the border between Texas and Mexico, I may not really understand all of the cultural competencies. There'll be some shared understanding, but maybe not everything. And then you take that and you expand it. So I'm just talking about understanding within my own state how people expect things to go. Take that out. Now I'm in a southern state, or I don't know if you can really call Texas southern. I think we're kind of our own element. That's my opinion. But I have lived in Atlanta. That's a southern state. I've lived in Maryland, which is considered kind of a region between the Northeast and the Southeast. The culture changes, and that's just within the United States of America. You go to Boston, it's different. You go to Washington State on the farther side, Oregon, it's different. California is a big state. Northern California and Southern California, they probably function a little differently as well. Cultural competency can be as much within your own country as it is crossing international borders and crossing familial borders, meaning, what do you mean, Lynne? Okay, what I mean is I am the daughter of a minister and a school teacher. So my household rules were very service-oriented. I was raised in a family that's very service-oriented. Other people's families don't work that way. So if I take my understanding as a family and how a family's supposed to work and overlay it on every other family out there, I'm not being very competent in my cultural competency, because that's just how my family works. That's not how every family works. Okay? Why does this matter? Why does any of this matter? Why are you talking about this, Lynne? Here's why. Because if we continue to work on our cultural competencies, then we're going to enhance our ability to communicate. We're going to promote inclusivity and equity. It's really important in the work I do, and I think in any negotiation to foster inclusivity. 3, you want to improve your personal delivery of information to another, i.e., like I just said, I know how my family works and what the expectation is. Not everybody does. So if I have to listen to understand so that I can deliver the information correctly. 4, it's going to strengthen relationships to have cultural competency, to know people from different places who have had really different lives, who teach you about their experience. I always say I love to collect people in a way. It sounds kind of creepy. I'm really not putting them in the basement and doing bad things, but I collect their stories. I collect their journey. I collect their shared experience in life. And theirs are different than mine. And I so appreciate it when people have given me that. Sometimes having cultural competency can facilitate resolving conflict simply by keeping conflict from starting. There's a thought, but proaction instead of reaction. And in the 6th item I want to say about this is it really does, having cultural competency really encourages self-reflection and awareness of one's own biases and assumptions. Okay? So anybody says, I don't have any biases. Yeah, we all do. Don't do that. That doesn't mean anything. We all have built-in biases. Now, they can be adjusted. They can be changed based on new information, but we all have them. So being aware and having the self-reflection and knowing how you are going to respond to something and then not making an assumption about how someone else is going to respond to it is a cultural competency. Okay? So, have some questions for you. I want you to think about this. I thought long and hard about this, and these are things that really will almost force you into thinking about cultural competencies. So, here are the questions. Have you ever been the only person with your skin color in a room? If you have never seen me, I am a white lady. I have been the only white lady in a room. And it's really valuable to understand what that feels like to be the only. So that if you see that in reverse with whomever, you can appreciate they might not be comfortable or they might not know the rules because you're not in the same cultural elements. Some are shared, some are not. Do you or your family come from a different country other than the country you live in? So there are people who work here in the United States, but they're citizens of other countries. And so they bring their own culture in, and they are probably having major culture shock to how United States works versus Germany or Spain or England. Folks, we quote unquote speak the same language, but we don't function the same way. We don't have the same expectations. Do you or your family speak a second language other than English? That doesn't mean you're actually even from that country, but do you speak a second language? Do you share a language with your family members that is a part of your culture? I don't know what the statistics of this are, but a lot of people in the United States only speak English. If you're in Europe, it's more common for people to speak multiple languages because the borders are tighter. Okay. In the state of Texas, a whole lot of people speak Spanish or at least have a functional working ability to try to communicate in Spanish because we share a border with Mexico. There are certain states on the northern parts of the United States that share a border with French Canadians. I bet they speak a little more French there. It has to do with what necessity. But if you don't speak any language other than English, and you hear people speaking second languages among their family, that's a separate culture. And it's different, and you have to recognize that. Does your family carry different cultural norms than the community you currently live in? I think about when we moved to Maryland. We lived in Maryland for a while, and everyone wanted to figure out what your faith was, because in kind of off the cuff conversation, they expected you to be Catholic or Jewish. And so everything else was kind of the different. I grew up in one faith and in another, and neither are Catholic or Jewish. And so that was a really interesting thing to experience. It wasn't about right or wrong. It was just different. And so having the ability to see a very strong Jewish community and see a very strong Catholic community where they understood cultural norms based on their religious elements that affected their life in a way that I didn't, because I didn't fit into those two boxes or those two religions. I don't come from that. Maybe you've said yes to one of these questions and maybe you said no to all of them. Okay. The point is to get you to think about, that's all those questions were to get you to think about, where are you on the cultural competency train? And what does it take to actually grow those skills? So to grow your cultural competency skills, you're going to have to recognize and value the worth of individuals, families, and communities that are different from your own. I'm going to say that again. It's really, really important. The point of building cultural competency is to recognize and value the worth of individuals, families, and communities that are different from your own. All right. Frankly, you don't have to understand all the new things and be open to acknowledging that you don't have to have all the answers. I think sometimes we think, oh, well, we've done this once, so now we know it. No, we don't. You just have to want to learn new things. And you have to want to be open to acknowledging what you don't know. I think about in law school, people come into law school and they think they have to have all the answers. And they're really, the students I work with at Texas A&M School of Law, they are smart. They are so, so smart. But they are sometimes kind of caught in this loop of, well, I have to have the answer and I have to have it, but I have to be perfect all the time. And if I don't give the right answer, then they'll think I'm dumb. And so one of the tenets you learn in law is to say, I don't know. You don't guess. You never guess. I don't know the answer to that. Let me get back to you. If a judge asks you a question in court and you don't know the answer, you really don't know it yet, your response should be, Your Honor, I can speculate, but I don't have the answer. May I bring it back to you? They will respect you more by admitting what you don't know than trying to cock and bull lie your way through something that you're just tap dancing. So don't do that. I think in general in life, don't do that. But want to learn new things and want the knowledge that comes from saying, I don't know, but I can go find out. So let me back up and just say all of that is to say, this isn't actually easy. To build your cultural competency, it's not easy. But the very, very first step in getting comfortable about the things you really don't know or understand is to say, okay, I am going to walk in here knowing I don't have the answer and it's going to be uncomfortable. You have to first be willing to say those two things. A lot of people are unwilling to do that. I am here in your conflict. Let's talk about conflict role to encourage you to do that. And let me give you, because this show is about trying to give you something to chew on and think about. Here are some ideas on the ways you can work on your own cultural competency. Okay, ready? This is great. Practice openness by demonstrating acceptance of difference. Did you hear what I said just a minute ago about being in Maryland and just being willing to understand it was different? Not better, not worse, just different. Not scary, not different. Acceptance of difference. Practice your openness. Number 2, be flexible. Rigidity rarely is the best course of action. You got to be somewhat flexible and demonstrate that you can handle some ambiguity. I kind of think I understand this. I'm not sure about that. That I really don't know. That's that ambiguity. You're going to have to find your way through being flexible. Demonstrate humility. You've heard me say before, your humanity leaks out a little bit. Yeah, your humility, you've got to demonstrate humility in having a suspension of judgment. You got to suspend judgment on that. It's different. I don't know if it's better or worse. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's different, not judging. And then have the ability to learn. Part of your real humility is saying, I want to be a lifelong student. And this is something I don't know anything about, but if you're willing to share it with me, I will be a more well-rounded person after you do that. Thank you. Humility. Okay. Be sensitive to others. Now, okay. Oh, the gospel according to Lynne. Sensitivity right now is like at the worst all-time high I've ever seen. Everybody is so sensitive and everything is the hot button and it's not. It's really not. When I say be sensitive, I mean be sensitive to others by appreciating their cultural differences. Do not assume you know the answer. Do not assume that because I'm in Texas, I'm going to use this example because you meet somebody who has a Hispanic or Latinx background that they're all Catholic. They're not. Don't make the assumptions. Be sensitive enough to wait and learn. Okay? Different kind of sensitive that's out there these days, but this is what I'm trying to encourage you about. Show a spirit of adventure. Okay? Cultural competency is to me about that lifelong learning and learning the skills that help you help someone else. That's certainly what it is in my world. So having a sense of adventure or a spirit of adventure by showing this curiosity and seeking opportunities of being in different situations, being a little bit uncomfortable, being unaware. I don't mean be unsafe, okay? But you will have opportunities to learn and grow from the people that you're going to interact with that don't look like you perfectly or come from somewhere else in the world or somewhere else even in your own country. Have a sense of adventure and go just show your humility and ask questions, see what you learn. Of course, use a sense of humor. I think you know that I am a firm believer in a sense of humor, and being able to laugh at yourself because you got it wrong is really important. That's really going to help you build that cultural competency muscle. I can laugh at myself. It's okay. Practice a positive change or action. Positive change or action by demonstrating a successful interaction with a different culture. Know that there are people out there who come from different backgrounds, who have different experiences, and go interact with them with respect. With respect. It really does boil down to respect, and understanding different does not mean wrong or bad. Different just means different. I have not massively changed who I am, but I have learned a lot from being around people who have had a different experience. And I appreciate every story they've shared with me. So in the work I do, when I can recognize cultural elements are happening, that helps me assist people that are really locked in their conflict to maybe hear each other in a way they weren't able to because they didn't get past their cultural issues. And sometimes it's that seeing it through someone else's eyes, the way they see things because of the culture they come from, because of the experiences they've had. So again, to negotiate well and to just be someone who assists others who are working through conflict, mediator, cultural competency is just a must. It's really something you've got to work on. I think people who have the soft skill of cultural competency really have a heads up on how to navigate. And I'm going to tell you this other fun fact. AI is never going to be able to fill that role. All right. So once again, a little bit more job security for all of us. Don't worry about that so much. We're going to be okay. So with that, I'm going to run this list one more time. Practice openness, be flexible, demonstrate humility, be sensitive to others, show a spirit of adventure, use a sense of humor, and practice positive change in action. That's what I have for you today. Thanks so much for joining me. We really appreciate it. Follow us. Let us know what you think of the show. And thanks again. It makes all the difference to know people actually want to listen to this. So with that, we'll see you down the road.